my conviction was that's not going to happen.
Hey everybody, welcome to Contra Talk. My name is Richard Henry, and I've got Jordan Bush here. We're here at Fight, Laugh, Feast conference in Knoxville, Tennessee. Tennessee. I said Knoxville weird. Jordan is a former missionary to Uruguay, pastor, church planter, and now he's going to be changing the world with Bitcoin. Right? That's the plan.
Yes.
So you've got a sign. You're a couple doors down. Thank God for Bitcoin.
Yes.
Which I'm thankful for. So. Well, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what took you to Uruguay?
Yep.
And what you're doing now, what Bitcoin is. I have an idea, but
okay.
I really don't have any idea.
Okay.
And I think most people watching
Yep.
have zero idea as well. So just tell us a little bit about
Yep.
yourself. You're married to kids.
Yep.
What took you to Uruguay?
Yeah, so we, thanks for having me first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Thanks for doing it.
Married and have 4 kids. We ended up moving to Uruguay about 7 years ago, I guess almost 8 years ago now. Moved there to plant a church in one of the most atheist parts of Latin America. There's a large percentage of suicide and depression, and these are all things that I dealt with when I was in college. And so I just coming out the other side of them because of my faith and because of the body of Christ. Just seeing that need in Uruguay, we said, hey, let's go down there and try to help people in the same way that we've been helped. So we get there thinking that's what ministry would look like. We got there and found that things were very different because as we were arriving, there were tens of thousands of Venezuelan immigrants who were pouring into Uruguay because the government of Venezuela had hyperinflated their currency. We had people who were doctors, accountants, economists who were making 6 figures in Venezuela, who a number of years later, after moving to Uruguay and not being able to bring any of their money was worthless, but couldn't bring anything else with them, they couldn't pay the rent. And so just the staggering reality of the power of hyperinflation, that was all new to me. I hadn't studied economics really. I knew a little bit about Austrian economics via Ron Paul and different things like that, but was by no means some kind of expert. But I was seeing and ministering to people who had seen and experienced the real world consequences of that kind of thing. So so we got there, and it was a few years later that I heard about Bitcoin and started piecing together. So Bitcoin is basically it's a currency that can't be devalued. It's a currency that has a fixed supply. There's 21 million that will ever exist. And again, without going into all the details why, you can't add more to it. Okay. And so the reason why I saw that value proposition was, so basically Bitcoin can't be inflated, printed to oblivion in the way that either the Venezuelan Bolivar or the US dollar, or all these other currencies,
Euro,
all the currencies of the world right now are fiat currencies, which means they're confidence plays in the government.
Right, they're not based on anything.
Not based on anything. Government can print them ad infinitum, ad absurdum. And so, so basically Bitcoin was not that. And so that, thinking about my Venezuelan brothers and sisters who we're ministering to, that was kind of the lights on moment of, wait, this is really revolutionary. Did more research, went down the rabbit hole. And and so it ended up being something that with time, I just kept seeing more and more applications. I was a missionary. And during the time that we were in Uruguay, the amount of money that we needed to raise kept going up by 6-7% every single year.
Wow!
And so, we were in a little bit of a unique situation that we were in a city context, but we got to the point by the time we were leaving Uruguay, we were needing to raise just shy. Again, we weren't seeing all of this money, but you have things, medical care, all these kind of things in an overseas context. We were raising just short of $100,000 a year. Wow. And so I'm looking at that and thinking about this, like, how long is this sustainable? Where your prices are going, costs are going up so exponentially, because the underlying denominator is this thing that's losing value rapidly, losing buying power rapidly. Yeah. And so again, thinking all these things, I had all these in the back of my mind. We hadn't taken a furlough in 7 years of being on the field. Wow. And so that was why I just was basically to the point where I just said, I need a break. Our missions organization was like, hey, you need a break. And so we ended up coming back last November. And again, thinking about all these things, the church was in a really good place. We had actually merged our church with another small church plant, with a team sent by Alistair Begg's church in Cleveland. And so, just the church is in a great place. So we just basically said, hey, they don't strictly need us. We definitely would love to go back on one level, but there's just other factors at play.
Yeah.
And so as I was back, I wanted to start looking for a job where I could do some sort of tent making ministry, where even if we did go back immediately to the field, that would be less support that we needed to raise to try to stem off ahead of time these pressures that we're facing. So I started praying, started seeking out. Again, one other detail that I forgot was that I had contributed to a book while I was in Uruguay. I was one of 8 co-authors of a book called Thank God for Bitcoin.
Okay.
That basically was like a Christian it's like a Bitcoinized version of Gary North's book Honest Money.
Okay.
And so whereas his big payoff at the end of that was we need to form a political action committee and go back to the gold standard. My conviction was that's not going to happen just because of the way that the futures market allows you to co-opt the gold market.
Right.
The nature of gold lends itself to centralization because it's physical, it's tangible and heavy and all these things. So that was not a good solution. That wasn't going to help my Venezuelan friends, my friends and people in Africa. That's not reasonable. Whereas Bitcoin, the places in the world that has some of the largest percentage of Bitcoin adoption, one of them is El Salvador, which made it legal tender. Another one is Nigeria, where Nigeria, again, people don't have, banks. They don't have, it's not widespread, very widely used. People don't have ways to secure gold, but they do have cell phones. And so they can send Bitcoin transactions via SMS messaging.
Okay.
And so Bitcoin, I just started to see this is a way more reasonable, not just for the wealthy people in America and Europe. This is something that really allows the poorest and most vulnerable people who've had their, work and the store of value for their labor devalued and dishonored in a way that, you can't even really put a price on. I mean, it'd be staggering, even just in dollar terms, if you tried to calculate that. But even again, if you think about humans being made in the glory and image of God, how do you calculate the value of dishonoring somebody who's made in God's image? And so that, again, these are things that were just, again, coursing through my mind. And so we ended up writing this book. The book, my favorite little anecdote. Again, I have Catholic friends. And it came out the same week as a book by the Pope. And we were out selling a book by the Pope. And we were like, take that, Pope.
We're reading the Pope.
Yeah, exactly.
Vex the Pope, just like Martin Luther. Get married, vex the Pope.
Yeah.
Write a book, vex the Pope. That's good. I love it.
Exactly. So so basically, there's just a lot of things where, another thing that I just think about is, and this is not native to me, was you think about, Bitcoin represents this radical decentralizing innovation that decentralized the trust in a centralized authority. And so in that way, it's a very similar innovation to the idea of the printing press.
Okay.
Where the printing press was this radical decentralizing innovation that God used to end the tyranny in the religious tyranny, spiritual tyranny that the Catholic Church had over truth, over the scriptures. And so in a similar way, obviously, no, not the same thing, but in a similar way, Bitcoin is decentralizing money.
Right. And it sounds like the Lord is blessing it to a degree. Yeah. Maybe not, man. Maybe He will. 500 years ago, 550 years ago, right around Gutenberg and everything else. Yeah. There's no way He would have thought like, hey, here's a sheet, and we're printing this, 100%. And computer, and 100%. You just print it right next to you at your desk at home. Yep. And so sometimes things take time, and 100 years from now, who knows what Bitcoin will do, or a different, Dogecoin and all these other coins. Yep. You never know.
Yeah, and so this is where. So again, our company, 5 of the authors of the book, most of them, I was the only missionary. I'm kind of the guy looking around like, what? How did I get here? A lot of these other guys have been in Bitcoin since, some of them 2011, 2012. So buying when Bitcoin was. Wow. You're talking under $100 a coin, and now we're at like 20,000, and went as high as 69,000 a few months ago. And so these guys, Christians, believers, and they see the urgency, and they see the consequences of unsound money. Yeah. And they decided to fund this company as a labor of love to basically help the church understand, you can reject it. If you understand it and reject it, that's one thing. But just to at least understand what it is and why it matters, both philosophically and practically, just the way that it's used. So.
No, that's good. So you said there's only 21 million coins around the world. So why can't that change? Yeah. So basically, somebody can't hack it. I think a lot of people think it's just digital. What's the big deal?
And digital things can be hacked. Yeah. Right. And that's it totally makes sense. The models that people have make sense. So the innovation that this person, shadowy figure, we don't know who it was, named Satoshi Nakamoto. This is their.
Okay.
This happened. He was the creator of Bitcoin.
Okay. Wow.
The stated goal of creating it happened in 2009. Okay, this is crazy. So in 2009, he published the Bitcoin white paper. Basically, the Bitcoin Declaration of Independence was published on October 31st, which is the day that Luther nailed the 95 Theses.
Halloween.
So again, following the same idea of like monetary reformation, the Bitcoin protocol went live. Okay, the first Bitcoin was mined on January 3rd. Which also coincidentally is the day that Martin Luther was excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Now,
oh wow!
I don't know if that was intentional. For me, that's crazy. That the coincidence is crazy. But I know.
I don't know. Yeah.
The first Bitcoin block from which the first Bitcoin were mined was called the Genesis block.
Okay.
Genesis isn't strictly a scriptural word, but again, this is just one more.
Sure.
So basically, what this is like anyone who wants to can download a copy of the Bitcoin ledger, which is the Bitcoin list of every transaction that's ever taken place in Bitcoin. Wow. So you can download it, and it's made small enough. The block size is small enough where you can download it if you have like 400 megabyte or 400 gigabyte hard drive.
Yeah.
You can download the entire ledger, and you can verify for yourself these transactions are taking place.
Yeah.
So you can think about it like copies of the scriptures. So like if someone were to say, hey, the scriptures say that women pastors are, this is what we've been doing for 2,000 years.
Right.
We can hold up our Bibles that were printed before this person said these words and verify, no, this is not the case.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so,
okay.
So in a similar way, all these copies of the blockchain that are distributed, it's freely chosen by people to do this, to freely participate all over the world, are there to testify to the truthfulness of the ledger of Bitcoin transactions. And so what you would have to do is you'd literally have to go around the world. You have to coordinate all of the governments around the world to go around and go door to door and chase down every single copy of this ledger.
Wow.
And then convince them to adopt a software change that is the one that they, all these joined unit together, all these nations put aside all the other concerns that they have and set themselves to this goal.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, having all these manuscripts and parchments and all these different things where we have multiplicity, hundreds, thousands of fragments and copies and books from
hundreds of thousands, hundreds and thousands of years ago. It's a very similar thing. So it would require international cooperation hitherto unseen in human history.
Yeah. No. Wow. Okay, so that's good.
This is what differentiates it from something like a Dogecoin or an Ethereum, where these are centralized. Again, they have a small group of founders who can make protocol level changes in decision making. So theoretically, if a government wanted to change something about Ethereum, if literally you go and kidnap Vitalik Buterin, who's the founder, I mean, that guy has so much sway in this. The whole network is so reliant on him that you can make massive scale changes via coordinating 2 or 3 people.
You're saying not Bitcoin? Would you say
Sorry,
Dogecoin?
Ethereum.
Ethereum. Okay. I don't know that one. I've heard of Dogecoin, and there's 50 other coins.
Exactly. There's thousands actually.
I feel like there was like a COVID coin or something.
100%. Yeah. And so
goofy stuff.
For a lot of people, it's just a game, or it's just like a it's a novelty item. Whereas Bitcoin was created to be like this defensive, way to protect people's buying power against the state.
Wow.
So yeah.
No, that's really cool. So what took you? Rewind a little bit, and we'll probably wrap up with Bitcoin more. But what took you guys to Uruguay? I mean, if you feel share as much as you want.
Yeah.
I know. Who were you with?
Mission Board. Yep, we were with Avant Ministries.
Avant, okay.
They used to be called Gospel Missionary Unit. The way that most people know them, so Jim Elliot.
Yeah.
One of the guys who died in the jungle with Jim Elliot was Roger Udarian, and Roger Udarian is with Gospel Missionary Unit.
Okay.
And then the man who found their bodies, his name was Frank Drown, and he was also with Gospel Missionary Unit.
Wow.
So Avant, I mean, they basically plant churches around the world. They specifically target cities where there's a very small presence of the church, and go there and do that. So that was our goal, was to go there and plant a church.
Okay.
And then doing that, we did that and are still very much interested in the future in the possibility of doing that and doing
Yeah.
that again someplace else. But just in this season of our lives, kind of this is where we're at.
Yeah.
And so so we founded this business. Some of the other authors of this book helped found this company called Thank God for Bitcoin, for TGFB Media, and the company exists to help educate Christians as far as what Bitcoin is and how it works. And so we do that via podcasts, via videos, educational resources, books. Eventually short films, things along those lines.
Okay.
Just things on YouTube. I mean, just making videos to help people answer a lot of the very, very reasonable questions that they have about Bitcoin, its economic impact, its energy usage. There's all kinds of questions. Our goal is to kind of help be the go-to source to help Christians understand all these things.
Yeah. So since there's nobody asking questions because we're just recording this, not live, what are some top questions? Because there's people going to be watching this and be like, okay, but where do I do it? How do I do this? And can I have my company use this to invest? You mentioned earlier in our conversation, a church should have 4%, of their budget or whatever. I forget how you say it.
Yeah.
Treasury. I think
Treasury, yeah.
And then go buy Bitcoin, and 4 years later, it's going to be much different. What are the top 2 or 3 questions people have?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's like seasonal. Some of it's right now. One of the things that has been talked a lot about by the news, which Christians don't go to TV preachers to learn about Jesus. This is not a reliable source. And so, curiously, people have much more trust and confidence when people talk about money on TV.
Yeah.
And when you go down this road, you realize there's a very good reason to doubt a lot of what's being said there as well. But so what are a lot of the questions? One of the questions that's recently come up a lot is relating to Bitcoin's energy usage.
Okay.
And so Bitcoin uses more energy than the country of Argentina or something like that. And so,
energy usage.
So the Bitcoin miners, the amount of money. So the way that Bitcoin works is there's the Bitcoin protocol, and these miners, in order to mine Bitcoin, which means, so think of if you think of Bitcoin like gold that's stored within rocks. In order to free that gold, you have to expend energy to buy machines that break up rock, that clean it and whatever. And so that involves obviously the capital investiture, to buy the machines. You have to have power, energy sources to power them. You have to buy oil, fuel, whatever. And then obviously you're paying people to process them, to do all these kind of things. So so the energy footprint of the gold industry is huge. It's way bigger than Bitcoin's.
Right. Okay.
But people are concerned about Bitcoin's energy usage. So the question is, it smuggles in this presuppositional smuggling. It smuggles in this presupposition Bitcoin is worthless. It's using a whole lot of energy, and so we should get rid of it. It's circular reasoning, 101. So the question that you need to ask yourself is, as a Christian who takes thinking seriously, as we go to first principles, what is an accessible and acceptable use of energy?
Yeah.
And so the way you think about, okay, right now, what is securing the world's economic system? It's not backed by gold or anything. It's secured by militaries, guys with guns, nuclear weapons, the threat of all these things. It's the threat of war, threat of violence, and then obviously you have the physical presence of ships and all these kind of things. And so, Bitcoin provides all of those same defenses, but without any of the threats of violence. It uses the same cryptography that's protecting the nuclear codes to protect your buying power. And so the question is, what is an acceptable use of energy? In my mind, if you can provide the security of banks, provide the security of the monetary supply that governments and banks have provided at this point, without needing the threat of war, the threat of being able to just charge in and destroy the lives of not just random people, but Christians all over the world. Disrupting, potentially, and this does happen, disrupting the work of missionaries all over the world, disrupting church life and all these things. If you have the ability to do that, well, then why as a Christian would you not do that?
Right.
And so in my mind, if you can do that, then in that case, Bitcoin's an incredibly valid and it's a very desirable use of energy. So that's one thing.
And somebody thinking this, because I'm thinking this probably. Where is Bitcoin then? Like you say, you're mining it. And I've seen these things, and that they broke up this house that was just a bunch of computers, and they were mining Bitcoin, and people are like, what does that mean? I can see rocks, and I can see there's little glittery stuff. So let's dig it out. Let's pan for gold in the rivers. Let's all this. Where is the Bitcoin? Is it hidden?
And so I have the snarky answer, and then I have the again.
You can give both. It's fine.
I'll give you both. So the snarky answer is, where is your money that you use? Okay.
Yeah.
The money that you we
It's-
already have
it's
digital
digitally
currency.
on
We
the-
already
yeah,
have digital
yeah.
currency.
Okay,
Almost
uh-huh.
nobody uses it. Like the vast majority of money, the vast majority of
Yeah,
money in the world that's being used is being used digitally.
No,
Exactly. Zero
no
cash.
bills in here. It's right here though.
So,
There it is,
so
yeah.
we're already using digital currency.
Yeah.
The other thing is, most banks hardly hold any physical currency in it. So if you want to go down to a bank, there's been people who've gone down to the bank. I need to get out $20,000 to go buy $50,000 to buy a house.
Right.
They're like, we don't have that right now.
Wow. So
Or
yeah,
you
don't
can't
rob
do
banks
that
anymore.
right now.
You just not there.
100%.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
so we're already using digital currency. It's already ubiquitous, and Bitcoin just represents decentralized digital currency.
Okay.
So now if we're going to take it seriously, like where is it? Basically, again, it's a little bit tricky to understand. So the way to understand it is just the regular banking system.
Okay.
So what actually happens? What the service that a bank actually performs and that the Federal Reserve performs is they have a ledger. Effectively, think an Excel spreadsheet where they're just tracking movements of money. It's all digital.
Okay.
They're okay, this person moved X amount of money to this person's account. And so that's all it is. All it is a ledger.
Okay.
In large part. There obviously are physical instruments. But so what Bitcoin is, the Bitcoin ledger it's a decentralized ledger that keeps track of all these movements. And so what is actually being moved are like you have your own key. It's basically the rights to a space on the blockchain. Okay?
Interesting.
So
To get a point, so of that 21 million,
yes,
you get a little slice in there.
Okay. So I own
like property, sort of.
Yes, it's
Okay,
it's like
okay.
digital property.
Okay,
And so
okay,
digital
okay.
property rights is a great way to put it. So what you actually possess is, I get the rights to a spot on this blockchain that only I have control over. And so the way that you control them is it's like either a 12 or a 24 word passphrase.
Okay.
And that gives me and only me, unless I want to share that with other people, gives me the right and the ability to move access to that amount of space on the blockchain.
Gotcha.
So, which sounds crazy, ephemeral, whatever, but it's really very similar to the everyday reality of money in the current system that we're already used to and accustomed to using. And don't
Gotcha.
think twice about using.
Yeah.
And again, Bitcoin. I think the other thing is just a question that people have is, about it's difficult to understand, and that is very true relative to where we are right now. There's a wonderful clip from the Today Show in like 1994 of, I think it's Bryant Gumbel and a few other ladies who are forgotten to history, talking about the concept of email. And they're like, what is email? Like, what about letters? Like, why do we need email?
Yeah.
And it is just, it's hilarious to look at it now. And all the things that they were saying were totally true. Email was really complicated. Like, what in the world? And then it became ubiquitous. And so in our case, like Bitcoin, 13 years ago it didn't exist, and now it's literally currency in a nation. In one of the poorest nations of the world, they're using it just fine.
Which one was that again?
El Salvador.
El Salvador.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So again, it's just like any.
That's their main currency.
So they have a shared. They use the U.S. dollar.
Okay.
And they use Bitcoin. It's native currency. You can go to Starbucks and use Bitcoin.
And ultimately, I think a lot of people don't realize this because most people just like economics. They kind of hate go sideways. But it's like we could just. I could say right here, this is worth $100.
Yeah.
And if somebody else accepts this as $100, and they get a book and a this, and there's a guy across the way with paintings, and I give that him, and now he can take that and go somewhere else. All it is we're just, it's this middle road for services.
Yes.
As opposed to being like, okay, you give me fried chicken and mashed potatoes and greens, I'll wash dishes for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Or a half an hour.
Yes.
And
so
I'll just give you some money. It makes it easier.
100%. And so this is the heart of what money is. Money is designed to be this intermediary, a trusted intermediary between people to help them provide value for them, to help them transport the value of their labor across time and space.
Okay.
And this is why money exists. And there can be good money and there can be bad money.
Right.
I just think that's one of the things. Part of the issue. The movement with as far as our educational goals is to demonstrate that Bitcoin is sound money. Demonstrate that sound money matters to Christians.
Yeah.
And so guys like Gary North and other people have done work on that, but they still haven't reached anywhere a broad level of adoption to where things need to be. But there's very good reasons for Christians to care about sound money. And so then our goal, our uphill battle is basically to demonstrate that Bitcoin is sound money.
Yeah.
And so, But yeah, so that again, it's tough on a lot of levels, but people ask really good questions, and so you're just helping people sort through. I mean, in a lot of ways, again, it's just you have questions about Christianity that I have with atheists and or people from other faiths or whatever. They have all kinds of really good questions or misconceptions based on interactions they've had with people, and so you patiently, reasonably, talk to them and try to. It's very similar. It's just any kind of education. Is all.
No, that's good. Well, you have anything else you want to add?
I'm trying to think. Our website is tgfb.com.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yep.
Okay,
tgfb.com. tgfb.com, as in thankgodforbitcoin.com.
Okay, good.
And then we're shortly publishing. Actually, we do have a YouTube channel, Thank God for Bitcoin on YouTube.
Okay.
But then we're getting ready to start a podcast and TikTok for the young. Again, we're like trying to love our younger Christian neighbors and help them as well. So yeah, we're going to be out there, and then the primary events that we do at this point, we have a conference. It's a standalone Thank God for Bitcoin conference, piggybacking off of the larger Pacific Bitcoin conference in Los Angeles next month. So that'll be our event will be November 9th. We'll have more details on tgfb.com. And then the bigger event is the largest Bitcoin conference in the world will be in Miami next May.
Okay.
There were 35,000 people in Miami this past year, and it's probably going to be 40, 50,000, this year.
Wow.
And so we do a larger event, standalone event the day before that.
Okay.
And so we'll probably have at least 500 people who are there who are Christian Bitcoiners.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I know an Anglican priest who's a Bitcoiner. I know 3 PCA pastors who are Bitcoiners.
Wow.
Like, you would not believe within the Reform world the number of Bitcoin, number of leaders who are into Bitcoin, and then just the number of parishioners themselves.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time.
Cool.
Really
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Well, go check his website out. And where's the best place to buy Bitcoin, by the way? You have points there?
Yeah. So again, there's limitless places, but one of the places that I would recommend buying Bitcoin from a place that only sells Bitcoin.
Okay.
Because what happens is the incentive structure and the other exchanges that sell all kinds of coins, they get paid by the transactions. So they take like 1.5% or 2% of every transaction. So the more transactions that they have, the more money they make.
Okay.
So they're not necessarily incentivized to sell you what's the best money. They're incentivized in a lot of cases to just pump their own bags.
Gotcha.
And so there's a few places that only sell Bitcoin. One of them is called Swan Bitcoin.
Swan. Okay.
Really weird name, but there's a ton of believers that work for that company.
Okay.
They only do Bitcoin, and they do a great job of helping educate people how to use Bitcoin. They have free resources that they offer. And then they will be the first ones to tell you, don't store your Bitcoin with us. Learn how to, over time, in the short term it's fine, but over time they'll help educate you to be able to take custody of your own Bitcoin yourself.
Okay.
So very much, it's very much the Bitcoin movement is very much aligned with like the self-sovereign movement and the movement towards sovereignty and the movement towards, being accountable for your life. And being
personal responsibility.
100%.
Okay. All right.
So,
Well, appreciate it, brother.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody go check that out if you're more interested. Buy Bitcoin, swan.com. That's a great place to go. And check out the website as well. So, all right, y'all. Take care.
Thank y'all.